meeting order, please, for silent reflection and salute to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Cynthia?
Here.
Mr. Diver?
Here.
Mrs. King?
Here.
Mr. McLean?
Here.
Mr. Schuler?
Here.
Mr. Vorback?
Here.
Mayor Mechanico?
Here. Pursuant to requirements of the New Jersey Open Public Meeting Act, notice of this meeting was included in the annual meeting notice posted on the borough website and in the municipal building, published as a legal notice in the Co-Star newspaper. A motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
I'd like to make a motion to amend.
We have a motion to amend.
I'd like to make a motion to amend to add an ordinance. I had an ordinance not prepared by Jay and approved by Fred Ravel to put on as a discussion item, but Mayor Mechanico would not allow it to go forward as a discussion item. But what it is I was not aware when the salary and wage ordinance was voted on. I was not aware that the superintendent of public works was getting a raise, and it was my own fault. And I apologize to everyone that I knocked on doors and I campaigned and about this particular salary, as did most of the Republicans up here, as far as controlling the salaries in town. Also, you know, what a lot of us were talking about, capping this salary, or reducing it, and some people, not myself, but some people were talking about eliminating. And so I would like to, I wanted to put this as a discussion item, an effort to bring the salary of the Public Works, Superintendent of Public Works back to what it was in 2011 with no increase. It's not a cut, it was just no increase. Everybody in town has taken a 2-year freeze in salaries with the exception of the Superintendent of Public Works. So, you know, the Borough Public Works guys have over a 3-year period, they only increased 1.5%. Over a 3-year period, the Superintendent of Public Works increased 9%.
Now you have to get a second.
I'll second it. I'll second it.
Second.
And
We need a roll call.
Mrs. Cynthia?
yes,
Mr. Diver?
No.
Mrs. King?
No.
Mr. McLean?
Abstain.
Mr. Schuler?
No.
Mr. Vorback?
Yes.
Mayor, on the motion to amend, the vote reflects 2 affirmative votes and 3 negative votes. The motion does not carry.
I'm sorry, Jay. Motion does not pass?
That's correct.
Okay. The motion does not pass.
So you need a vote, Mayor, on the original agenda. It was moved and seconded.
Vote roll call for the regular agenda, Jay.
Mrs. Cynthia?
yes.
Mr. Diver?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Vorback?
Yes.
Thank you. Need a motion to approve the minutes.
Mayor, there are no minutes this
No, no.
evening. I have a packet that will be distributed separately in preparation for our next meeting.
Very good, thank you, Jay. For public hearing, we have ordinance number 7-2012. Would you read that, Jay, please?
Yes, this is an ordinance of the Borough of Spring Lake Heights, amending and supplementing Chapter 7 entitled Traffic of the Code of the Borough, establishing Section 7-16 entitled Roadway Charitable Solicitation. This ordinance was introduced at our last meeting, has been published and posted, and is scheduled for a hearing at this time.
We need a motion to open that hearing.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Anyone like to speak on ordinance 7-2012? Seeing no hands, I close the.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yep. We need a motion to
adopt the ordinance.
Adopt, yes. Motion to adopt, please.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
I'll second it.
Roll call, Jay.
Is there any discussion on that?
Any
Amongst
discussion?
council?
Sorry. Roll call, Jay.
Mrs. Cynthia?
Yes.
Mr. Diver?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Vorback?
Yes.
Thank you. Next ordinance number 8-2012.
This is an ordinance of the Borough of Spring Lake Heights, County of Monmouth, State of New Jersey, amending Chapter 7 of the revised general ordinances of the Borough of Spring Lake Heights entitled Traffic. And Mayor, this ordinance removes the existing one-way traffic regulations on a portion of Railroad Avenue. And it has been, this ordinance was introduced at our last meeting, has been published and posted, and is scheduled for a hearing at this time.
If anyone would like to speak on ordinance number 8-2012, just step forward. Seeing no hands, we need a motion to adopt ordinance 8-2012.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Any questions? Roll call, Jay.
This is on the motion to adopt the ordinance. Mrs. Cynthia?
Yes.
Mr. Diver?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Vorback?
Yes.
Thank you. Ordinance number 9-2012.
This is a capital ordinance of the Borough of Spring Lake Heights in the County of Monmouth, New Jersey, authorizing various purchases and improvements to public facilities and appropriating therefore the sum of $90,000. Again, Mayor, this ordinance was introduced at our last meeting, has been published and posted, and is scheduled for a hearing at this time. This ordinance provides both the authorization as well as the appropriation for the two improvements that are outlined in the ordinance. The first being acquisition, installation of signs and message boards and related costs in the amount of $70,000, and an additional appropriation of $20,000 for recreation facility improvements, and that's specifically at Allaire Road Park. These funds are available in the borough's capital reserve, or capital fund, and involves no additional debt authorization at this time.
If anyone would like to speak on ordinance 9-2012, step forward, please.
Hi, Kathleen Crippen, 564 Atlantic Avenue. I'd like to ask what the $20,000 for the improvements in Allaire Road Park specifically are for.
Yes, the items identified, although it is general practice in terms of the ordinance to provide a more general explanation. Specifically, these improvements are planned for the facility, I guess it's for, finishing the second floor of the facility that is currently garage storage space, and that would be used primarily, I guess, for the Little League field.
And recreation.
Little League and recreation activities at the fields.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. If anyone else like to speak? Seeing no hands, to close this portion. Need a motion to adopt ordinance 9-2012.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Any questions? Tom?
Yeah, this is going to involve the digital signs, right?
That is correct, sir.
Yeah,
We'll need a motion and then a second and then we'll
Okay,
have a
then-
discussion.
Yes, we
Is
did.
there a motion to adopt?
Yes,
You
yeah.
did. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I've been talking to some folks around town and reflecting on it. I don't think digital signs are in keeping with the character of Spring Lake Heights. I think it'll detract from the aesthetic quality of the park, and I'm not in favor of it.
Well, I did send out an email, through Jay. I did send out an email through Jay. The beautification committee is also, maybe Eileen can speak to that if she would like to, but, the beautification committee, I believe Eileen brought up the fact that we do have an ordinance against internally lit signs, and they were concerned that maybe that if we went ahead with digital signs, that the businesses along 71 would also start getting digital signs, and so they're a little concerned about that. They were a little concerned. There's also the cost expense, which I forgot to include in the email to everybody. The cost of expense not only of upgrading and maintaining, but after the lifespan of a digital sign is less than what the signboard that we have that's 30 years old. It's only going to cost us $3,000 or if that. But anything's an improvement, right now. So I think the beautification committee also feels that anything's an improvement as well. So, but they were not happy about that.
Mayor?
Yes.
In discussing the signs as we have over the past couple of meetings, one of the reasons I favor the digital signs is that in the event of an emergency situation, our emergency services coordinator could be using that sign to send messages to people in our town, especially in impending hurricanes, any weather disasters, etc. It is, and it has been in other towns, made aesthetically pleasing, and there's no reason why we can't do the same here. I think there was some discussion about it being on Ocean Road. There will be no digital sign on Ocean Road. We went out to the park, and if you look at Ocean Road Park, or it certainly could never be done at the community center, and if you look at Ocean Road Park, it's just too close to residences. We went back out, we actually looked at it again. There's no way we really could put that there without affecting someone. In fact, I had a conversation with a homeowner, and I said, the worst thing we would do is drive down your home value, and we're not going to do that. So no, there will not be any sign on Ocean Road. That's a definite. We do have, and I had spoken to the folks at the Board of Education, and last Monday, and I believe it was reported in the Co-Star this week, I spoke with members of the Board of Education about putting it by the school, because the sign by the school is an interior lit sign presently, and as well, the school is exempt from borough and planning board ordinance. Therefore, we would be putting a sign, interior lit sign, replacing it in an existing condition. So you would not need specific ordinance to change for that. As such, the Board of Education passed a resolution supporting the digital sign at their Monday meeting. And we're happy to share that sign with them. I think it's important for parents in our town also to see the latest information for their children. The Little League can use it, our recreation can use it, our environmental committee can use it. Whoever wants to get a message out, we'd be able to get it out. We are hopeful in putting one on Alair Road, but again, that will be determined on its effect in the area. We are definitely going to be reviewing that. There was talk about removing parking spaces. We now know we don't have to do that. There is another way to do it, where it also would not be affecting anyone, because if you look at Alair Road Park, directly across from the park, of course, is Fairway Mews, but Fairway Mews has large hedges and trees that sort of block that view, and the houses are way set back, as opposed to, say, on Ocean Road, where you could have a house right here. That wouldn't happen there. So on Alair Road Park, that sign is probably more doable, but again, we are going to go back out, test the site, for site guidance, and then decide.
So the sign might go on the school property, but this is coming out of the open space fund, right?
No, sir. Not at all. You heard Mr. Delaney before.
Oh, General Calyx, sorry.
It's out of the capital.
So it could be on
We
70.
are not borrowing any money to put up these signs.
So
And that includes new signs at the north and south end of town, which are those decorative signs. If you're coming up Route 71, you'll see the sign right by the bridge going over to Seagirt. And if you're coming south on 71 from Lake Como, you would, well, it's actually very hard to see that sign where that was placed. We should really change that. But it was, if you go by the Spring Lake Heights Center, the sign used to be there, but it fell down because it rotted. But there were posts there for that sign. And it's right as you come south on 71 to Spring Lake Heights Center where the post office is. That sign was right as you got past those bushes by that little bridge and creek that runs there. But you can't really see that there, so really we should move that to where people can actually have it a little more visibly, which I think might be a little more towards the highway, as far as that goes.
Well, I guess my position is I don't like digital signs, whether they're on
That's okay.
71, whether at the school, at the park, or whatever. A lot of other people I've heard from don't like that either.
Anything else? You'll look further into the signs at the Alair Road Park.
Yes, yes. All this does is provide the funding. Doesn't mean that anything's going to happen.
And,
Anything else?
Well, I just would, if we can improve the dance around this the school sign.
Oh,
I
I'm
don't know if
sorry.
any of you've noticed the plants around the school sign.
That's why we have a beautification committee, make some
I'll
suggestions.
personally fund it.
Any other? Roll call, please, Jay.
This is on the motion to adopt ordinance 09-2012. Mrs. Cynthia?
Yes.
Mr. Diver?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Vorback?
No.
Thank you. Amendment to the 2012 municipal budget. This is amendment number 1, R 2012-101. Do we need a hearing on that, Jim?
Yes. Mayor, this resolution amending the borough's budget for the year 2012 prior to its adoption was approved at our last meeting. It has been published, and notice of the hearing was included in that publication, and the public hearing is scheduled at this time. It should be noted that this amendment, as previously discussed, provides for no change in the expected tax rate, and technically, this is an increase in the tax rate, but in light of the fact that the borough is assuming the fire district cost, when factored in the elimination of the fire district tax rate, this will actually provide for a drop in the municipal tax rate in total. These specific amendments are outlined and were discussed previously. I should note that there was a minor typographical error in the amendment as it was introduced and published, and as a result of that, on the resolution agenda is an additional amendment which provides for that correction in the amount of $56. And I think Mr. Barrett can speak to that specifically at that time. In any event, this is the hearing on the amendment as approved at our last meeting.
Would anyone like to step forward and speak on the amended version of the budget? No. I need a motion to adopt.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
I'll second it.
Any questions? Roll call, please, Jay.
Mrs. Cynthia?
Yes.
Mr. Diver?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Vorback?
No.
Thank you. Council reports. We'll start with Councilman Schuler. Anything from Public Works?
The no parking signs,
Sorry, Building and Grounds.
the no parking signs for Snyder Avenue, I believe have arrived and they'll be installed.
Sorry, James. I got ahead of myself, as usual. I'm trying to get the meeting over quick. At this time, we have the first voice of the public. I apologize. And open the first voice of the public. You may speak on any agenda item. Come forward and give your name.
Okay. I have a few things, but I guess only one thing was on the agenda. John Lewis, 574 Prospect Avenue. I wanted to go back to the Department of Public Works getting a raise for the superintendent. The men in the Department of Public Works didn't get a raise, did they?
That is subject to their signing a contract. If they sign their contract, they will get a 2% raise, and it is included in the salary and wage ordinance.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Just trying to.
There is no free zone,
Well,
per se.
They're in the town. We did have a 2-year wage freeze and
On police.
just police. I thought Department of
That is a
Public
contract.
Works.
Also in Public Works, you're correct. Public Works was frozen in 2009 and 2010 and 2011 under mine.
Okay, they
2011, that's,
They got
two years. Everybody.
they got a 1.5% raise.
They got a 1.5% raise in 2009. They were frozen in 2010 and
Frozen in 11. My point I think I was trying to make, because that's what's in my head and what I tell people, is that the police took a 2-year wage freeze, the Department of Public Works took a 2-year wage freeze, and I was asking the school teachers to take a 2-year
Again,
wage
if
freeze.
the Department of Public Works signs off on their contract, they get a 2% raise this year.
This year, but
This year, which is the current salary and wage ordinance.
10 and 11, they took their freezes in 10 and 11.
exactly. When
Okay.
Art Herner had a
And this is
contract.
all I'm trying to get straight here, is that the police took a 2-year wage freeze, the Department of Public Works took a 2-year wage freeze, and the head of the Department of Public Works got a 1-year wage freeze last
chief also it has been frozen for 2 years as well, with his men.
My story is I go around town talking to people, I tell them everybody took a 2-year wage freeze. If I'm mistaken with that, and the fact that Art is now getting a raise, that means he didn't take a 2-year wage freeze. Everybody but he, and the teachers did. And I don't know who you talk to, but as I go around town, I know you came and ran for city council saying the salary was outrageous. You did. I don't know what you did, never know what you do. But
Excuse me?
well,
Excuse me?
I don't know, when you were running, you didn't say anything.
I would never run any campaign at any time
Saying that you
attacking an individual.
No.
Excuse me, sir. Let's set it straight.
Yeah.
I would never run a campaign doing it. It's stupid. Because you know what? You get here and there are 6 other people that may have a different opinion than you. And to run around here and try and bully people into
Who's
saying...
bullying who?
Oh, come on, John. Are you
I
serious?
have asked you direct questions.
And I just gave you a direct answer. I would never run a campaign.
That's right, and you run a
Mayor, you're
campaign
gonna
and
have
tell
to call
everybody
for
what they want to hear.
It's the council's fault.
Okay, this is the problem. We can't hold our taxes.
Excuse me, John, just state your point.
Okay, the problem is, I don't think we could hold our taxes down because people, however this is, I just want to know what the process is when you're doing the budget and you say, geez, this guy deserves a raise. I mean, what's the thinking behind that when you're passing out these raises? We borrowed $1.3 million last year because we had no garbage trucks, no front-end loaders, and nobody at the Department of Public Works or this council thought to save a nickel for it. I don't go out and spend that kind of money on my credit card, and I don't want you people doing it.
For the record, I didn't vote for that.
Okay, and that's right. Put it in the record, see if the school newspaper will put it in. But the idea is that the public will eventually find out who's voting to give these things out. And you're going to be on one side or the other. And because I tell people what side you're on, do not get upset with me. You people make the votes when you run. And that's the first thing that was on the agenda. I'll get back to you on the second half.
Anyone else like to speak?
Kathleen Griffin, 564 Atlantic Avenue. Actually, totally off my question. I like digital signs. I think it's a great way to get the message out, so I don't have a problem with them. I did want to ask about the new business, the ordinance introduction that's on for tonight about the improvements to Allaire Road Park and Ocean Road Park. I have no problem with updating the park. Certainly they need it. But when this proposal was originally submitted, it was submitted on the basis of being a matching grant, and it was proposed for $187,000 in change to the county, and then $187,000 that would come from our open space fund for a total of $374, and now it's up to $465, which is almost $100,000 more. And I'd be curious to know, is any of that money, of that additional almost $100,000 targeted for Fletcher property?
Mayor, would you like me to address that?
Yes.
First, I can't speak to what transpired prior to my arrival. It is my understanding that this application was submitted in September of last year and was approved by the County Open Space Committee in December. It is a matching grant for the actual costs of construction and/or improvement. The grant program does not provide funding for what are generally referred to as soft costs, the costs for design, engineering, permitting, as well as contract administration. So much of that additional amount above the original 388 reflects that, I'm sorry, 374 reflects the additional cost. I would also note that the budget as proposed that is the subject of this tonight includes just under $40,000 in contingency costs, in the expectation that there may very well be some reason to provide for unforeseen contingencies. In the event that does not transpire, those funds would not be spent. The second part of your question regarding the Fletcher property, these funds are coming from the borough's Open Space Trust Fund. They are unallocated funds, not earmarked for any specific purpose, other than as reflected in the original referenda and ordinance establishing the trust fund for the development, acquisition, and/or maintenance of recreation and conservation open space properties. In terms of their, I don't know what is earmarked. When you use the word earmarked, there is no specific allocation in any of those funds for any specific purpose, other than the fact that the borough is obligated as a result of the Fletcher property acquisition. I believe currently there's a balance of $400,000 remaining from those acquisition costs, which will be paid over the next 10 years at the rate of approximately $40,000 per year to pay down that debt. And that would come from the future open space revenues, which are currently approximately $116,000 a year.
Okay, right there you said it's going to be paid down over 10 years, and yet when this was originally formatted, the plan was that it would be paid down within 5 years. So there's something that I have a little quibble with right there. The fact that you're draining the open space funds here doesn't leave anything for the Fletcher property. And I'd like to point out that you have residents on Jeanette Court who are spending their own money to do tree work on borough property because they are so afraid of the vines and the trees falling onto their property. So, as I said, I'm not opposed to fixing up the parks. God knows they need it. It was let go for years. There's work that needs to be done everywhere. But there was an agreement when the Fletcher property was purchased that it would be paid off over a period of 5 years and that there was maintenance money. And I also have a concern that there was money received from the county and from the state. Was that commingled? It was deposited in the open space fund. I have an accounting of the open space fund for about the last 4 or 5 years, and I see in 2011 there basically was no work done, and I don't even see payments on the bond being done in there. So I would really respectfully ask that you table this ordinance until you have a chance to do a little investigation. And I would actually ask that Mr. Barrett get in touch with the former CFO who had worked out the payment plan and the maintenance plan, and to follow up with that. I understand that people come in new and that you don't know what agreements were made in the past, but it was an important purchase. We worked very hard. Gary McLean can attest to this. We worked very hard to make sure that we got everybody's consensus along the way on this, and part of that was that the property would be a focus for cleanup and for maintenance, and we had the money. We had the money. So where did the money go? Okay, so really, I would respectfully request that you table this in order to give the finance guys a little chance to do some legwork and investigate it a little bit more and kind of sense it out. Thank you.
Thank you, Chad. Yes, John.
John Barrett, PM Consultants. While you're still here, I want to refer to this topic as far as the $400,000. In consultation with the auditor who I was meeting with earlier today, any bond anticipation notes that were taken out in prior years, a portion were paid down. That was part of the plan of using the open space funds. During the period of time when we came on board in October, the borough participated in a pooled loan program where this outstanding debt was rolled into the outstanding debt in the pooled loan program for some very good reasons. Although the average maturity, I believe, was 12 years as opposed to 10 years, and certainly we didn't go to 15, we could have gone out 15 years. What Mr. Delaney has taken on in analysis of the open space fund is that $400,000 will be basically amortized over a 10-year period of time. So while it's not 5 or any other number that's been spoken about here tonight, it's under the 12 and it's at 10 years. Therefore, the $40,000 mark with down payment of principal is what is now going to be adhered to and moving forward. I can assure you that there's nothing we can do as far as prepaying that in a 5-year period of time, but any money that we have in that open space fund will basically be retained there and growing interest. So while, say, 5-year schedule would have basically doubled that to $80,000. The differential of $40,000 will probably remain there as it has for many years gone prior and probably years moving forward. So we have contacted the previous financial team here. We've obviously spoken with the auditor, and with the leadership of Mr. Delaney at the helm at this point, this is where the move is moving forward. So I hope that would at least answer your question specifically.
I understand that that answers technically what's going on, but you have to realize that there was a promise made to people. There was a promise that was made. There was an agreement that was made that this be done over a 5-year period, that was the only purchase, the only focus for the open space fund, and everybody was on board and everybody agreed to that. And so I just feel that this is going outside the loop of what was agreed on. There were people who would not vote for the purchase of that property unless they saw up front that it was going to be paid off in a timely fashion. So I understand rolling over the bonds and refinancing and that whole thing, but you know, basically the taxpayers got scooched on this one because this was set up to be done in a certain way and it got undone. And I still have to ask, where did the money go? Is it, I mean, is this all from taxation? Are you using money that was set aside from the open space grant for Fletcher property, for the Green Acres money for Fletcher?
First of all, you have several times referred to money that's been set aside for the Fletcher property. The fact is that the money was not set aside for the Fletcher property. There may have been discussions, again, prior to my arrival. And frankly, at the time last year, late last year, when the bonded indebtedness was converted from temporary financing in the form of bond anticipation notes in the form of permanent financing bonds, the $400,000 that was outstanding from the open space fund for the purchase of the Fletcher property was rolled into them. Frankly, at that point, there was sufficient funds in the open space trust to have paid that down completely. And so I'm not sure what the discussion took place or what the change in agreement may have been.
There was also money that was received specifically for demolition. There was money that was received for cleanup, basically, the cleanup of the property. And I remember we had discussions on this. And, you know, where's the demolition? You were talking about having to move money around to demolish the house. I'm concerned that the municipality received county tax dollars, they received state tax dollars, and nobody quite seems to know where that money went, except that it's in the open space fund, and now it's being allotted towards something else.
I can assure you that from my review of the Open Space Trust Fund, I just want to use the term Recreation and Open Space Trust Fund, that the funds that were received from both the state in the form of Green Acres grant and from the county, from the Monmouth County Open Space Grant, were in fact dedicated and used for the purchase of the Fletcher property. There was a remaining balance that was the obligation of the borough that would need to be paid over time from the Recreation and Open Space Trust Fund. And that's exactly what we're doing. Now, when you say that there was some agreement in terms of 5 years, there were opportunities and there's a mechanism that would have ensured that that would have been paid off over a 5-year period. But for whatever reason, last year the outstanding $400,000 of indebtedness that was incurred for the purchase of the Fletcher property was rolled into the bond issue, which, as Mr. Barrett has indicated, is now scheduled to be paid down in, I believe it's a 12-year period. So it really doesn't give us a means to accelerate the payment from the Open Space Trust to pay that down.
But also, what happens to the money for the cleaning the property, maintaining the property, tearing the house down?
Well, the funds that are generated each year from the open space tax go into the Open Space Trust and are available for that purpose. And that's precisely what we're intending to do this year, is to allocate a portion of the dedicated open space fund for the maintenance, which includes the demolition of the house at the Fletcher property.
Well, at the end of 2011, you had $232,000 in change, and I assume something has come in for 2012, but you're spending out 374.
Actually, at the end of 2011, there was $456,000 in the open space trust account.
Well,
The-
that's
the-
not
the
the
numbers-
accounting I got.
While I'm not in review of the numbers that the president has, you are referring to the audited figures, and even on the annual financial statement document, which is unaudited, still had a similar $400,000 balance. So I'll be happy to review that with you at a later, not at this moment.
No, I know, but I just want you to see, it's from the office, and it
Right.
says 232.
It's an unaudited document you're looking at.
And also, when did the open space trust fund become the recreation and open space trust fund? Did they get rolled together?
It's always been a recreation, open space. Technically, the trust fund is created for the purposes of open space, recreation, farmland preservation, and historic preservation. And I know you had requested, and I provided you with the original resolution that placed the question on the ballot. And I believe it uses that same language, which is what the statute provides for dedicated trust funds for open space and recreation.
But we do have a recreation trust fund
We have a recreation operating trust fund, that's correct.
that was dedicated by Ryder. All right, again, I would ask respectfully that you take a second look at this and do a little time to do some legwork here, because this is not what was originally thought of when we were doing Fletcher. And again, you're spending all this money, but you have residents that are paying money out of pocket to maintain borough property when you're doing this, so it's just wrong. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Anyone else like to speak on any agenda item? Seeing no hands, I'd like to close this portion of the voice of the public.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Jim, Councilman Schuler, now we can get to the councilman.
The no parking signs that have been ordered and they're in from Snyder Avenue, and they'll be installed on one side. We've put signs up at the Ocean Park about respecting the neighborhood and the neighbors, the graffiti. And hopefully that'll help alleviate some of the problems we've had up there.
Okay, good. Councilman Diver.
The only thing is recreation. The summer camp will start July 2nd. And on a happy note, our recreation director, Sean Heater, was married this past weekend. Good for him, and congratulations.
Councilwoman King.
In reference to our police department, last Thursday, at the corner of Highway 71 and Passaic Avenue, from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., we had a DMV stop that proved to be very, very successful. And in that process, they also arrested someone who was out, outstanding warrant, and they were very pleased that they were able to apprehend that individual. A couple of weeks ago, they also had a DWI stop at the same location. That was done by the county, and it was reported on in the newspaper because the police chief from Brielle also does the DWI for the county. And so it really came under his jurisdiction, and our police participated. But again, you know, it was a successful operation. And then right now, we are in the Cook-Epper ticket, which also has been reported on in the newspaper. And just make sure that you keep your seatbelts on. And also, they're very, very diligent on cell phones as well. So just to give you a heads up, and that's all I have to report on.
Thank you. Woman Cynthia.
Well, as far as the amendment for the ordinance amending the salary and wage, I just wanted to comment on There's irate or, however upset about the fact that the campaigns were never about an individual. They were about council people.
Patty, do you have anything to report?
You said before the meeting that I could use this.
No, right now I said, do you have anything to report as far as?
No, I just want to make a comment about the fact that with what it is, what the campaigns were about, were that they were to elect us as individuals, and that we would not be giving out these big raises that other council people have given. It's not about the employee.
Excuse me, Mayor?
Go ahead, Rich.
I'm sorry, but I think that's out of order. And let me just point out, you voted for the ordinance twice. That you didn't read it is not our fault.
No, it's...
No, excuse me, I'm sorry, that's a fact.
Let me comment on
And
that.
you came to a meeting
apologize.
at the last meeting and attacked me for singling out an individual, yet it's okay for you.
No, you singling out this person for a raise. You're doing the same
Excuse me,
thing.
let's not
Be
twist
fair.
Let's not
Be
twist
fair
it.
about it.
Exactly,
Right.
be fair.
Be fair.
Absolutely. Be fair.
Don't single out somebody for a raise.
This is committee reports, right?
Yeah.
Just, thanks.
Sometimes you gotta get out of your system.
Thank you, Tom.
I have nothing.
Nothing to report.
Reports, notices, and correspondence. Anyone see the reports? Do we have to discuss these, Fred, or?
The reports, notices, and correspondence, Mayor?
Yeah.
In your packets is May 17, 2012 correspondence from Attorney E. Thomas Brennan, Esquire, regarding a petition for a corrective deed. This is something that my office still has to look closely at because there are legal issues that have been raised in this correspondence. It was put on just so council was aware that this communication was received by the borough, but I would recommend that you not take any action at this point because it's still being investigated, that the information that was set forth in Mr. Brennan's letter. We'll get back to you with our recommendations on it because there are a number of legal issues involved.
Okay, thank you. New business, ordinance introduction. Ordinance number 10-2012.
And Mayor, this is a capital ordinance of the Borough of Spring Lake Heights in the County of Monmouth, New Jersey, authorizing improvements to Ocean Road Park and Allaire Road Park, and appropriating therefore the sum of $465,000, including $188,000 available from the Monmouth County Municipal Open Space Grant Program. And as discussed earlier, this does provide for an appropriation from the borough's Open Space Recreation Trust Fund.
Need a motion?
This would be to introduce the ordinance.
I make that motion.
Second?
I'll second it.
Any questions? Roll call, Jay?
Mrs. Cynthia?
Yes.
Mr. Diver?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Vorbak?
Yes.
Thank you. New business, resolutions. Resolution R 2012-105.
This is a resolution amending the 2012 municipal budget prior to adoption. And again, as mentioned during the hearing on the previously approved amendment, this provides a single amendment in the amount of $56, which is essentially to correct a typographical error in the budget as adopted, and as amended, I should say.
I'd like
Mr.
to
Barrett?
I'd like to take full responsibility for that error, and I apologize for the second vote here. But it's neither increases your budget or decreases it. It's simply from transferring from one document to the other that Mr. Delaney caught the error in my work, and that's all I have to say.
It's okay, I forgive you. I miss a few things too, meetings.
And Mayor, given the size of this amendment and the fact that it is strictly changing one line item and does not impact the amount to be raised from taxes or any other line item in the budget, there is no requirement for this to be published or that a public hearing be held on it. It's considered a minor amendment.
Winner. Thank you. You have a motion, please?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
One second.
Any questions? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Cynthia?
Yes.
Mr. Diver?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Vorback?
Yes.
Thank you. Resolution R 2012-106.
And this is the, what's commonly referred to as the tax resolution. It's the adoption of the 2012 municipal budget after a couple of months and now 2 amendments. And this final adopted version does reflect the 2 amendments that have just been approved this evening. And if I may, this provides for a total amount of $3,887,441.87 to be raised from taxes for municipal purposes, and also provides for the collection of $115,945.49 for open space, recreation, farmland, and historic preservation trust fund levy. Referring to the current fund portion of the budget that is supported by taxes, we anticipate surplus in the amount of $445,150, miscellaneous revenues in the amount of $1,089,665.27, receipts from delinquent taxes in the amount of $200,000, for a total amount to be, plus the amount to be raised from taxation in the amount of $3,887,441.87, and the total revenues then would be $5,622,257.14, with total appropriations equaling the $5,622,257.14. And with that, the mayor is ready for consideration for adoption at this time.
Thank you, Chair. Need a motion?
I'll make that motion.
A second?
I'll second it.
Any questions? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Cynthia?
Yes.
Mr. Diver?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Vorback?
No.
Resolution R 2012-107.
This is a resolution authorizing tax refunds, overpayments, or cancellations, and these two are refunding overpayments due to homestead rebates.
Thank you. I need a motion, please.
I'll make that motion.
And a second?
Second.
Any questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Cynthia?
Yes.
Mr. Diver?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Vorback?
Yes.
Resolution R 2012-108.
This is authorizing release of performance and/or maintenance guarantee to Investors Bank.
Okay, thank you. Need a motion to it in a second?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any questions? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Cynthia?
Yes.
Mr. Diver?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Vorback?
Yes.
Thank you. Resolution R 2012-109.
This is a resolution authorizing the cooperative pricing agreement with the Southeast Monmouth Municipal Utilities Authority.
Thank you. Need a motion and a second.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Any questions? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Cynthia?
Yes.
Mr. Diver?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Vorback?
Yes.
Thank you. Resolution R 2012-110.
This is approving the renewal of the designated alcoholic beverage control licenses. And Mayor, you'll see that we have divided the licenses into 2 groups. The first is maybe the easier way to describe it is, the second is approving the license for the Spring Lake Golf Club. The first resolution is providing renewal for the following. Distribution license issued to JP Wines LLC, trading as 71 Central Liquors. Consumption licenses as follows: issued to Michael Doolin, Inc., trading as Doolin's. The second to the Irish Riviera LLC, trading as Stevens Green. The third issued to Quest Associates, Inc., trading as Wines Inn. And the final to Shore Culinary LLC, trading as The Mill at Spring Lake Heights. I would note that there are 2 additional licenses that have not yet filed the renewals at this time, but we expect that they will be filed and be considered by the council at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you. I need a motion and a second, please.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Any questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Cynthia?
Yeah.
Mr. Diver?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Vorback?
Yes.
Resolution R 2012-111. This is for the Spring Lake Cup. Did we just?
Yes, this is approving the renewal of the alcoholic beverage control license issued to Spring Lake Golf Club.
Motion and a second.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Any questions? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Cynthia?
Yes.
Mr. Diver?
Abstain?
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Vorback?
Yes.
Thank you. Financial resolution. Need a motion to move the bills to the Finance Committee.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
I'll second it.
Any questions? Roll call, check.
Mrs. Cynthia?
Yes.
Mr. Diver?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Vorback?
Yes.
Thank you. Resolution R 2012-112. Approving payment of claims for May 21st.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
I'll second it.
Any questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Cynthia?
Yes.
Mr. Diver?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Vorback?
Yes.
The consent resolution R 2012-113. Everybody take a look at them. Motion.
Make the motion.
Second.
I'll second it.
Any questions? Roll call, check.
Mrs. Cynthia?
Yes.
Mr. Diver?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Vorback?
Yes.
Thank you. Second voice of the public. Anyone like to speak on any item? Please step forward. Give your name.
First, I want to apologize to Rich. I mean, I didn't mean to upset you. I wasn't picking on you, but I have to tell everybody, I think you know me by now, if you raise salaries and taxes in this town, I'm going to be hard. And I didn't mean to say that you did something in particular when you ran. Each of you has run, and you only have one mantra. I will hold taxes down, or, you know, that's what you tell the people. You never go to their door, knock on it, say, hi, I want to raise your taxes. So if everybody wants to hold taxes, you've got to take a hard line sometimes with people that believe they're due money that everybody I talk to at the public just shakes their head and goes, I can't understand it. That being said,
I apologize as well, and I apologize to my fellow members of the council.
Thank you.
Okay, it sounded like we had the Democrats back up here. No, I'm only kidding. You know, as far as the signs go, I wanted to just tell you a little story. People across the street from me just put some landscaping in, and people have come up the block and said, boy, it looks like Spring Lake. You know, and I said, yeah, they really did a nice, expensive job there. So when you guys think about putting electronic signs up and things like that, just think about, do you think it looks like Spring Lake? You think they would put electronic signs up? And I don't think it's a good idea, but I've never seen the signs that are there, and I live here 40 years. So the electronic ones are probably not going to bother me a bit. And now to get to the serious business, I asked Jay about the fire department check over the last couple of weeks. When the fire commissioners were dissolved, there's a law that says any monies that they held automatically reverts to the town. During the 2 days of public hearings, we found out that they had 320-something thousand squirreled away in a money market fund. That's the fire commissioners. That money should have automatically reverted to the town, and I want to read you some legal opinions and the law, and you can then tell me where the money is. First of all, Jay, we did receive that check today, is that the case?
Yes. Yeah, at the, just to refresh everyone's memory, at the previous meeting, I don't believe it was our last meeting, it may have been the one prior, the first, or the last meeting in April, the council had authorized a resolution that was directing the bank that currently holds the funds that were in the name of the fire district to release those to the custody of the borough. And that has happened, and in fact, today we received a check for just under, actually I believe it was 2 separate checks for just under a total of $46,000, which I believe reflected the balances remaining in those accounts that were previously in the name of the fire district.
Okay. $46,000 was the number. The number that was in there on the day you dissolved the district, and not the DCA, here's what the law says. If a resolution be adopted that the fire district be dissolved, any monies remaining in the fire district treasury shall be disposed of as said governing body shall direct. And again, if a resolution be adopted, that's what the law said. And you know what? Judge Lawson, he read the law. And he told the town, this court finds that this certain statute, 91, is operative statute to determine at which point the fire district is dissolved. Now you all understand that Judge Lawson gave the fire company or the district 1/4 of the money that was passed in their budget, because Judge Lawson found that the fire district was dissolved upon the resolution that you made in May. That's why he only gave you gave them a quarter of the money. Notwithstanding the DCA, which again in his long form here tells you that doesn't make the difference. The DCA, what they have to do, doesn't stop the fire district was effectively dissolved. That was his order. And it goes on to say, the court finds that as of May 2011, adoption of a resolution by the Borough Council dissolving the fire district, the borough, let me see, for the purpose of NJE, the fire district was effectively dissolved upon the adoption of the resolution by the Borough Council. The court's already ruled on it, told you, gave them a quarter of the money. The fire commissioners had no right to give that money to the fire company so they wouldn't have to give it to the town. They were dissolved. That money automatically should have been turned over to the town. Now, that's the law. If I take them to court, I'll get it back. But God, why do I have to do this all the time? I mean, this is clear as, anybody can read this. I mean, you're a lawyer, Gary. Is there something ambiguous about these things? Is there something that you guys don't understand?
Well, I think the person who decides what those documents means to us is the township attorney. So if you want Fred to take a look at it and tell us.
Okay, and Fred, you can make copies of it, but they're inside. That's where I got them. But
actually, I get copies over to John Lane because he's still special counsel to handle all matters related to dissolution of the fire district.
It could be argued that, and I'm not a hard guy, I got a lot of hard bark on me, but I'm really not a hard guy. It could be argued that, well, if the fire company had no money, how were they going to run the fire company without the commissioners paying them? And a couple of weeks ago, I turned over their 2009 tax return to the borough here that clearly shows they accumulated over 5 years over $500,000 in donations. That's the fire company. So for them to try to say to anybody, we didn't have the money for gasoline, when they spend $3,000 a year for gasoline and $18,000 for their electric and gas bill, 5 years, $500,000. Where's that money going? And why did the fire commissioners? I know why they did it. I mean, they gave it to them so they didn't have to give it to you. But I don't know if you want to do anything about it. I mean, I'm up to here with this. And I just want the public to know that not only was it taken from us under false pretenses the first time, they stole it again from you. And, we could sit here and dance around all day, but the money's gone. I'll decide if I want to sue them or not. I have a time frame that starts the day you get that check, and that was today. So That's all I gotta say, but you gotta watch the money better, and you gotta start kicking some butts around here instead of passing out jobs to these people. Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak? Seeing no hands, I close the second voice of the public. Need a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?